I work in the data center industry. We build cages for companies to store data for consumers. When you hear about NVIDIA and Amazon, those are some of our customers.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Anthony. We are new with another episode of Blueprint Approved, where we got real conversations with real careers. I'm here with a special guest today. Her name is Jasmine Bumpass, one of the best financial analysts in the game today. Jasmine, thank you really much for coming out and spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Jasmine, if someone doesn't know you inside of work or even outside of work, if you had to describe your job really quickly in a sentence or two, what would you say to that?
I extract financial data and populate it into a presentation so that executives can make strategic decisions.
I provide data that helps people make financial decisions.
I like
All
that.
right, so financial analyst, what industry do you work in?
So I work in the data center industry. We build cages for companies to store data for consumers. And it's kind of cool. I'm back of the house because I'm a financial analyst. But when you hear about NVIDIA, AI, and Amazon, those are some of our customers. It's kind of cool being behind the scenes and knowing we help power everyday activities.
That's pretty dope that you're actually in the forefront of leading the way of some of the biggest technology today.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to see what the trajectory is going into 2026 and where the economy is going to be. So it's kind of like I get like a inside scoop, I guess, a little bit.
Have you always had a desire to be in the financial analyst space, or how'd you get started into that?
Growing up, my parents owned a restaurant. In Colorado, we had a restaurant where me, my sister, and brother, we worked and we kind of like managed the place. I think that gave me a lot of experience, like one, like just knowing how to work ethic, and then two, coming across a lot of personalities and different people, all walks, background. So I really like honed in on the front of the house part of the restaurant. So making sure the register is balanced, closing down the books at the end of the night, tipping, doing payroll, stuff like that. So that's where the interest initially started. Coming across so many different people, I knew what kind of life I did and did not want to live, right? So at the time I was going to school at UCCS, University of Colorado at Colorado Springs, pursuing accounting because I knew it was like a stable career that could get me to where I wanted to go. But I always just had an interest for money, most for my personal financial background, but then also helping my family and friends achieve their financial goals. The restaurant really kickstarted it, and then I started reading and snowballing from there. And then I found EYO in 2020, and that kind of let me get into investing. So it's just been a snowball where I keep getting better and better.
Nice. Like you mentioned a lot of things from job to reflecting on you liked front of the house being a people serving, but then also you kind of got a passion and saying, all right, you know what? I like this bookkeeping stuff, this money kind of stuff, and let me go to school and actually get into accounting.
So you get to learn a lot when you work in a restaurant. I have a lot of respect for people that work in like restaurant and really like grinding it out because it's not just physical labor. If you're like management or something like that, it's mental labor as well because you have to manage people. You have to keep in the black. And then if you are in the red, you have to get creative with different like, marketing strategies. How am I going to draw people in here? There's more than what people think that goes into running a restaurant. And I think it's a great transition to multiple career avenues.
So speaking of your transition, you started in the restaurant industry, went to school, drew you into the analytical financial analyst world. Was it intentional? Did you pivot? What did you unexpectedly get in there and somehow just wound up and said, all right, this is where I'm at today?
Yeah, so it kind of just happened, really. So I had a friend that was already in the industry and she was my entryway into it. My first job was financial consulting for rural telephone companies. I think that showed me a lot, but it was very small. Eventually, I pivoted into the financial analyst aspect for a credit union. That was very eye-opening because I saw how money worked, how these banks were exchanging money, and how they were making money based on your money. So I think that was a light bulb experience for me. Not that I'm on the wrong side of it, but I'm not leveraging my money the way that banks are leveraging my money. So let me get smarter about my money. It's kind of like how that opened up for me. I think since then, I like being in the numbers, but I don't like necessarily speaking to the numbers. I'm truly a behind the scenes type of person, but I'm more and more coming out of my comfort zone and being able to do that storytelling of the numbers so that executives can make those big decisions for the company.
Really interesting on that part because you mentioned about how you like sharing the numbers, but not necessarily being in front of the house and speaking to them.
Yeah.
So, what would be your favorite part of the job? What's your least favorite part of?
Least favorite is it's very redundant. I'm a Sagittarius. We like spontaneous adventures. And it's like every day, I, for the most part, know what to expect, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I like routine, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't feel like doing this. I'm sure everybody has that in their job, but I think that's the thing I like the least. The thing I like the most is the industry I'm in now with data centers. It's very exciting. It's very trendy. It's what you hear about in the news. I didn't even know NVIDIA was one of our clients until I was doing a specific report. And I was like, oh, snap. This is kind of cool knowing that what I'm hearing about in the news or when I'm trading, these are real companies that my job works with. It kind of gives me a sense of like one, pride, and then two, like feel like I'm having an impact in every people's everyday life. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the most exciting part about my job.
So you mentioned the redundancy on that one.
Mhm.
Everyone, I get it. Some people don't like the same pattern day in and out. Some people prefer it, but the consistency behind that.
Right.
Walk me through a regular day. What was your typical day?
Well, it's very standard. The first 6 or 7 business days, we're trying to close the books from the previous month, right? So what that is a lot of cross-team collaboration with accounting or your finance business partners to ensure the numbers align to what they would expect. It's analyzing the GL for any abnormalities, like if we need to do a reclass, if contractors are booked to the correct account code, like things like that is kind of what your day to day looks like in the first week.
For those who aren't familiar, GL stands for your general ledger.
Then it's a lot of building PowerPoints to present these numbers not only to your finance business partners, which is the team that I support, but also to the executives. So I'll meet with my finance business partners first to show them, hey, this is a flash of what your last month looked like. Does this align to what you expected it to be? And if they're on target for what we budgeted. So we do budget versus actuals. This is what you budgeted. This is what you actually had. What's the variance? And then with those variances, if they have a surplus, we can roll that over into the next month or push it out for the rest of the forecast year so that they can use that money. But if they ended up spending too much money, then where are we going to take that from? Because you can't go over your budget. So really just communicating with them so that they know where they stand year to date, month to date, quarter to date, so that we can make better forecast projections for the rest of the year. And my job is actually on a calendar year, so it's a little bit easier. That's January to December. So it's easier with our forecast schedule, but we're constantly reforecasting. On that first week, we're truing up the numbers from the previous month and then trying to see if we need to make any adjustments for the forecast going forward. So that's for the day to day. It's a lot of communicating back and forth, running reports, analyzing the numbers, and then drawing conclusions from those numbers, what's causing those variances, and then sharing that with finance business partners.
One thing you mentioned too, after your first week and getting all your stuff out, that you use some PowerPoint presentations. What other tools or softwares are you relying on consistently that people who might have an interest in getting into the financial analyst role?
Excel, yeah, I mean, in really any career, Excel is the number one. Power BI, so those visual dashboards. I don't necessarily have to create the visual dashboards, but knowing how to navigate them to extract the data that I need to complete my job. Coupa, that's the platform that we use for our POs. We use Fieldglass, that's the platform we use to manage the contractors. SmartView, that's the platform that we use to upload our forecasts. And then Tableau, which is what we use to pull our GL data down. Those are the main platforms that we use in this position. Obviously, PowerPoint to make our presentations. Sometimes we may come across smart sheets to help cross collaborate with different teams to make sure that we stay on our timelines for getting our tasks completed, like forecasts, and then our main communications like Teams and Outlook. So just being familiar with those different platforms.
You mentioned that you're really heavy on the Excel game and mostly a lot of Microsoft products. Do you feel like Excel, like the number one skill you need to have that people wouldn't expect to being a financial analyst? Or if it's not, what do you think should be the number one skill in order to be successful in this role?
Definitely Excel, I would say. I think that's foundational. It translates to a lot. Like even SQL, sometimes you may need that. In this role specifically, that's not a platform that we rely on heavily, but I have used them in previous roles. All roles I've had in this position have been Excel heavy. Excel is foundational to really excelling in a financial analyst role.
For those who prepaid in advance, how are you allocating those specific customers who are using advance pay? Are they getting a discount or some sort of incentive for doing that in advance, or is it just some people prefer to just pay the annual cost all up front?
So it definitely varies by vendors. For the team that I specifically support, they're more enterprise wide, the work that they do. So we don't have a lot of POs for individual vendors. We don't have more of the smaller vendors, more big $1 million invoices that I'm dealing with. But with that, it's a lot of negotiations on the purchasing team. They negotiate all the contracts and stuff company wide. So if we have POs that come through, you would see a discount or something in there because we spend a lot of dollars with you. A lot of engagements will come up in Q4 to wrap up whatever strategy or engagements we're trying to roll out before the next year.
What was a mindset shift or a project, something that you did in your life that said, all right, this is definitely where I want to be. This is the path I'm going to take.
Yeah. I think it was really seeing the people living the lives that I didn't want to live. That was the shift for me. And then knowing that I wanted stability, I wanted finances, I wanted some money in my pocket, and I wanted PTO so I could travel. So those were the things that I was really looking for. I knew I didn't want to work physically anymore. My body was tired and I was only like 20. I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I want to get paid to use my brain. Once I made that decision, I took school more seriously and started telling people this is what I'm trying to do. My friend was like, hey, I work for this company, they're hiring. And then once I got into that job, I was like, dang, I'm not broke, but I'm not making money like I thought I was supposed to be making. Because when you're in school, they're like, oh, this is what this career field will yield you if you go down this trajectory. And I was not near that number. So I was like, all right, something's got to give. That's when I started like pouring into like finances and let me learn. And then I think somebody at the company felt unvalued and applied for another job and they got it and the money they were asking for. And I was like, oh, let me see what's out there. And I really contributed to my husband because he's like, Jasmine, you're so smart. Why don't you just put yourself out there? And I was like, the hard thing about putting yourself out there is you don't want to get rejected, right? That's what everybody says. But that was one of the best things he could have told me because I applied for a job and instantly I got like $20,000 more. I was like, oh, okay, let's do this again. So something that one of my old bosses just told me, he's like, if you're not moving every 2 to 3 years, you're going to stall out.
So it's interesting you say that. And the last guest we had on the show, she said something very similar. She also went from company to company,
Yeah.
and that's not a bad strategy. But what I will say for those people who want to stay put and build loyalty within the company, but secure
Yeah.
their bag as well, I'm very big on your brag sheet. And your brag sheet really should be things that you contribute to. If you say your goal is, I want to make an extra $20,000 this year, your leadership, what do I need to do in order to make that happen? You may need a new certification. Let's say you're in sales, you might need to close $1 million in sales that year for them to say, all right, you're worth the extra money. You
Right.
need the having your meetings with those managers, you put it down. Hey, just so you know, this is what I'm working on. Let's say you're heavy into building dashboards and presentations, right?
Mhm.
And you say, okay, we got a vendor who closed $500,000 quote to build this dashboard and this presentation with some fake data. You learn how to build a dashboard. It takes you maybe about 5 hours to learn the systems, to build it out. And even though it's MVP or minimum viable product status, it's sufficient enough for your executive team or senior leadership team to say, all right, we are comfortable with this. We don't need to move on that quote. When it comes down for you doing your annual reviews or comes down for raises, you can say over the last year, this is what I've done and here's how I've contributed. And here's how I now deserve this raise, because they're not going to willingly advocate for you. So you might get your merit anywhere between 1 to 4%. That's pretty standard.
For sure.
When you go in there with your contributions, the value that you bring and the time that you save them and the money you save them, that's how you secure the bag. The people who speak up for themselves are the ones who always secure the bag, whether it be internal or external.
I 100% agree. Somebody told me, work on building your brand. You are a brand. So you have to build your brand. And then whoever you talk to within the company, to explain to them who your brand is, going to another team, another department, and learning that department if that's something that you're interested in. That's something I'm looking at too, because the money is really on the product side. So if you aren't the product, you want to be the product because that's where the money is, right? How do you support the product? And if you're not tied to the product when these layoffs happen, that's who's on the chopping block, the people that aren't tied to the product. So that's something that I'm definitely always looking into and upskilling so that I'm always in a position to get to where I'm trying to go. Opportunities come to me when I open my mouth to speak up. So if I'm looking for something, I will communicate that to whoever I'm around, like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I don't even look for opportunities. They just come to me. People be like, hey, Jazz, like you said you're looking for this and I found this, or this may be an opportunity that you're interested in. I'm like, oh, dang, I appreciate you looking out for me. So, the more people you have on your side, the better and further off you can go. I think a lot of people be afraid to tell people what they are thinking or what they have going on, which I get it. Some people will backstab you, but how many people will help you versus hurt you? You know what I'm saying?
No, I completely agree. You mentioned about being a brand for yourself. And one of the things about being the product of your brand, you dictate the choices and actions you make behind it.
For
And
sure.
for I'm fortunate enough for me, I have a lot of good relationships. One of them being you. One of the first things I did was ask anyone I know in my circle that can be of value. I asked you, and you graciously said, "Yeah, let's do it." So being the brand to me says I need to advocate and speak up.
But that's the joy of having people that you can bounce ideas off of.
You're at the forefront of the technology space and with multiple partners on there. How do you see AI adding value or impacting your industry overall? Like, where do you see that heading?
I feel like AI right now isn't able to generate the conclusions of financial analysts that it generates is very basic. It's very like surface level. I think what executives are looking for is deeper rooted analysis and conclusions. And I don't think AI can generate that right now. As it gets more reason and emotional intelligence to kind of like take the background story, take what you're plugging into it, and generate the conclusion, I think it could help with the presenting part, what a financial analyst does, getting those presentations and stuff together. But I think as far as looking at the numbers, I don't think it's going to be able to take this variance, go into the GL, and just pick like these 5 lines really made this variance happen. It's not going to be that level of detail because how is it going to know that those are the 5 lines that made up this variance? With the financial analysis, is kind of based on trends. So you have routine expenses and then one off expenses that are going to happen. Those one off expenses may not raise a flag to AI. But to you doing their books, like we don't normally have this expense. Why did we have this expense this month? Why are we paying for security when you're traveling? That's an abnormality for this team. But as far as right now, I don't see it impacting our industry outside of like helping with presentations and more of the redundant tasks. But they say AI gets smarter and smarter every second. People type questions into it. So I don't know.
Do you see AI as a tool, threat, or transformation?
I personally see it as a transformation. It's like my little pocket best friend. I be asking it all types of things. I think it's definitely transformational if you can use it correctly and use it to scale whatever you're trying to do. Like I'm working to get on the product side of things. I had AI generate me a whole plan to get on the product side of things in 90 days. It sends me a daily reminder to make sure that I'm staying on track. Resume will be in the position to pursue it. LinkedIn will be in the position to pursue it so that I'm in the position to make that pivot if I want to make that pivot. I think AI just allows you to have more choices. And I think people don't realize how many choices that are in their control. Sometimes we allow other factors to dictate our decision making, whereas you are the final decision. You can live and do whatever you really want to do. This is America. We don't realize how powerful that is.
No, you're completely right. And I think the one thing in this day and age is the amount of resources we have available to increase our learning and drive the change that we want to be informed on. I want to learn how to get into product. There are so many videos, books, resources
Right.
I can just step into, and a lot of volunteer programs that will say you don't have the hands-on experience we need today, but here are some projects you can take on to build that exposure, or you can build your own. It says, this is what I've done, and now I'm qualified to step into it. You mentioned product a number of times. Is that where you see yourself going in the next year or two, or is there somewhere else you'd like to be?
Yeah. So right now I'm exploring the data product management roles and learning the data product side of things. So now I just have to learn the product side. Like what does that mean? Like going to market. I hear working with my business partners, but like I know what it means, but like what does that mean? What does that job entail? That's what I'm working on understanding now. I think it's an industry that will never die. AI will just be a tool to aid in it. I think this will be a good route for me where I don't have to relearn. So I think this will allow me to transition into a like level role and I can still have a successful career. Because I mean, I have my own aspirations, I have my own businesses I would like to start and run. So, really trying to find the balance between making the financial goals I have and career aspirations. I guess just pride. I want to get up and feel like I'm doing something and contributing. I don't want to get up and feel like I hate my job. I'm just trying to figure out the balance between the two and still have time for my son and my family. I don't want to be working all the time. I want to have a balance.
These are all great things that you can accomplish. I have no doubt of it because I know your ability to be driven enough to move forward with that.
Right.
One thing
Thank you.
you mentioned about learning what does go to market look like. So go to market is a few different things. It's really making sure you visibly put your brand or the product aware to the end user. Additional to that is you want to do a focus group or a beta test on who the initial people that you feel are going to use this product daily and get their feedback on it.
Okay.
So have you ever heard of the story on how Gmail became around?
Mm-mm.
What happened was the guy was like, well, you know what? I wish I had a way for me, who was working at Google, to see my emails regularly and immediately as they come in. I don't want to have to go searching for them. I want it to pop up right away.
Right.
Worked on a passion project. It took him about 3 or 4 months to build, and he used it with his specific email. Then he went to his colleagues and said, hey, what do you think of this? The feedback was, this is good, but it's just your email. I wish I can see my email. We started
Right.
making changes and they said, this is good, but it's cluttered. If I had the ability to put it in separate folders, that would be helpful. So we took that feedback and put it into there. So we kept pitching this stuff to him to build out this MVP style and launch it. It was originally listed to people who had paid Google subscriptions as a
Mm,
new feature. So they
yeah.
could beta test and get the real customers' feedback into it. As
Right.
they got into there, that's how they launched it. So your go-to-market strategy is putting it in a position where the people who are going to use it regularly can provide feedbacks. You make some tweaks to it and then continue to see what's the value and what cost they feel comfortable with. It could be something as simple as making it a virtual or desktop enabled program instead of
Mhm.
having something that they have to physically download to integrate it, really understanding how you impact people's lives for the better day in and day out. Are they going to be the Raven fan that's going to say, all right, you know what? I love this product and I'm going to give you money for this product, or
Yeah.
I'm going to make my customer retention longer. Think of like Amazon Prime. They have the movies, they have the music, they have the membership. They continue to add value into that product, Prime, and add all these new incorporations. Now, they started recently adding them annual fees, but they continue to add more and more stuff that their millions of customers find enough value to stay.
That's exciting. That's why I want to make a transition because that's exciting. I'm excited to see what today has in store for me. But I can also see the other side. I think that's really cool. There's always going to be a new product or a product that they're expanding on or trying to add more value to. I think go to market is very exciting.
The one thing to be mindful of is you mentioned young family. You want to keep that into the back of your mind as well because it becomes very demanding at points.
Yeah.
And you are held accountable for the success and the failure of that product. When companies are spending billions of dollars for that,
Yeah.
it can become very stressful. And if you're
Mm.
seeking work life balance, be cognizant of that
Okay.
because each role is going to have its challenges, but also some benefits to it. Now, you
For sure.
mentioned you have some work life balance privileges that's not as demanding. Have been working with folks in the product space and know a lot of people in that industry. There are some good things to it. The money is
Yeah.
good. bonuses are a lot bigger, especially if they hit certain peak performances, but they're the ones being held accountable for it. So you're working with risk
Yeah.
marketing, IT department, you're working with customer service, you're working with whomever to make sure all the components to make this product go successfully goes to market, or in this case, goes to life. And your customer has to benefit, appreciate, and have a positive experience, because the fastest way to get a product shut down is if you have customers complaining that they don't like it, it doesn't work. So a lot of you end up like, think about in the wood shops, you measure twice to cut once. The same thing happens when it comes to product marketing itself. You can do it. I don't doubt that.
No, that's a
You
good
can do
point.
it.
I didn't think about that part. I'm gonna shadow some people and see how they like their jobs.
Definitely, I will absolutely give that advice to anybody.
Yeah.
If you want to pursue a role, find someone already in that role, and especially if you have the ability to work with them, learn from them. See what
Yeah.
you like about their work ethic, their process, their intentions behind it, and tweak it. Anytime I've ever managed somebody, I always say there's something you can learn from anybody, good or bad.
For
Something I'm
sure.
going to incorporate in my everyday work environment or personal life. If I get put in this position, I will change differently.
That's a good perspective.
So I know I just said my own little piece of advice on something I would give to anybody. Is there any advice you give to someone else who's just getting started in financial wellness or has a desire to get into it?
Stay curious and network, I would say, is the biggest thing. Thankfully, I've had a lot of people that took me underneath their wing and kind of like guided me, because I think it's easy to get complacent in financial analysts. So definitely connect with the right people. So networking is really big. And then also, I would just say staying hungry, because people, you have more chances of growing with a company when you're curious. When you stop being curious, then people start being like, "Oh, that's Joe over there. He's a dinosaur. He just does his job and then goes home." And nothing's wrong with that, but it's hard to progress when you're like that. Stay curious and network.
You mentioned all the things that you've done in your life
Yeah.
and had some good successes and some changes. If you had to share something with your younger self that you was proud of, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good question, Anthony. My perseverance, for sure, because I've never been afraid to pivot. I think in 23, when I got laid off from my job, it was the first time I had instability in my life. And it felt like rock bottom, but I was still up top compared to other people. Thankfully, I had a good circle around me that kept me uplifted and encouraged. And I prayed a lot during that time. And that prompted my move. And we just moved on faith, really. Everything fell into place for us, thank God. We moved without jobs lined up. We moved without housing. Being able to weather those storms, I would say, is like the biggest thing looking back. I'd be like, Jazz, you're okay. You're going to be okay. And I think it comes down to that work ethic and being able to do what needs to be done. I would probably give little Jazz a hug, pat on the back, and just say, keep going. You're going to find your way.
Absolutely. Continue to give yourself grace. Don't ever
For
be done,
sure.
because you continue to push through and you impress me more and more every time I talk with you and things that you continue to pursue on there. So I'm excited to see where
Thank
your
you.
journey comes on to it itself. Last question I have for you at the moment. If the audience wants to stay in touch with you, get connected, well, how can they do that?
Instagram is Jazzy the Explorer. Facebook, if people are still on Facebook, is Jasmine Bumpass. But if you follow me on those two, you'll figure out what I got going on. If you have any questions, find me on LinkedIn or on social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us, chat with us, break down the financial analyst game, things that are coming on in the AI world, a bunch of different things that you drop knowledge on. And I really appreciate you giving the people your blueprint.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Anthony.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for having another episode with us.